Well, we decided to get out on Table Rock Lake today and do some summertime fishing. Myself, Kyle, and my dad got up super early this morning, decided to hit the water by daylight and see if we couldn't catch us some summertime Table Rock Lake fish. Now we're from the area, we fish Table Rock all the time. We had a pretty good idea going into the day what we would need to do to catch some fish. And with the water surface temperature of about 86 degrees, a hot sunny day, really no wind to speak of, we knew it was going to be a little slow, but we were still confident we could catch some fish. And I want to show you and tell you actually how we caught them. So if you're ever down on Table Rock, or if you're on a lake like Table Rock, maybe we'll give you a few tips and it'll help you catch some more fish. So we knew going into the day that more than likely after the sun got up we were going to have to pull out deep and catch some fish in that 20 to 30 foot depth range. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. You know, we knew we'd have to slow it down, so we switched up from a top water early, which we caught, I believe, 1 or 2 fish before the sun came up on it. But once the sun got up and there was no wind and it just got really bright, those fish just got real inactive. So we got after them with a drop shot and a shaky head for the most part. But we kept the top waters on the deck of the boat because this time of year, especially on Table Rock and all the bait fish that are in the lake, you never know when a fish or even a school of fish are going to come up chasing shad, and you want to make sure you're ready, have that top water on deck. Because even in the middle of the day, like it was for us, you know, it was 90 degrees, the sun was blaring down, and there was really no wind to speak of. But if you find yourself in the right spot, they'll push those shad to the surface and you can just shoot that top water at them and get bit, like what happened today. Kyle caught a couple decent ones doing that. But when you're not having that, you know, when it's slow, we kept that boat for the most part of the day in that 30 to 40 foot depth range. We fished bluffs, bluff ends, we fished channel swing banks, and we fished long run out points. And really the key out of everything was the depth. Those fish really like to hang out in that 20 to 30 foot zone this time of year. And that can be either suspended or on the bottom. So when we'd fish the bluffs, we'd fish tight to the bluffs, make a complete cast right up against the bluff face and just work that shaky head or jig down a ledge. Now while Kyle and my dad were throwing up at the bluff, for the most part I'd be up on the front watching my graph using the drop shot and just fishing vertical. And I'd let it down and, you know, most fish were showing up 20, 25, maybe 30 feet at the most. And I'd let that drop shot down and I caught a few doing that. Same thing on the channel swing banks. While those guys would work the bank and work that 15 to 30 foot depth range on the bottom back out, I stood up on front. I just kept the drop shot in my hand, and like I said, managed to catch a few. But we had the top water on the deck all day, and even in the middle of the day, late morning, you know, fish would come up around us and we'd fire over there, and every once in a while you'd get bit. So for my drop shot setup, I'm just using the St. Croix. It's a 6'9" medium light rod. It's a really good drop shot rod. It's got plenty of backbone, but the tip is still limber enough that it makes a really good drop shot rod. And I always tend to fish this with about 6-pound tests. You could probably get away with 8 or even more depending on the water clarity. But I think 6-pound test allows me to get a few more bites than I normally would. Table Rock's a really clear lake, and I just feel like the lighter the line, the more bites you'll get. But my typical drop shot setup is, you know, just a drop shot hook with anywhere from a 12 to 16-inch leader for my weight. And most of the time I'm running a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce weight on the bottom. And then for my drop shot baits, I really don't get too carried away. I'll fish a robo worm a lot of times, but today actually I was throwing the Strike King Dream Shot, and that's actually the first time I'd ever drop shotted with them, and I really liked them. Caught, you know, most of my fish on it. They've got really good action. It's a real limber bait. The only thing I'll say is, being that it's a real limber, supple bait, you will lose some. So actually I got to the point later in the day where I typically just nose hook my drop shots. I got to where I was Texas rigging it, running it up through the nose and out the back of the body, and it allowed me to catch a few more fish before I'd lose the bait or before it'd tear apart. Now when I'm fishing the drop shot, I'm constantly watching my graph, which it helps to have a graph that you can read and you can look and decipher, you know, look down there and see what's fish and maybe what's not fish, see trees, any kind of structure they may be hanging around. So all I did was just kept my eyes on the graph, and really I wouldn't drop down until I seen a fish or two on the graph. When I'd see a fish or two, a lot of times if you see multiple fish at the same time, there's a better chance you'll get bit as opposed to just dropping down on a single fish. Seem to get more aggressive that way. I don't know if it's, you know, fighting over the bait and it kind of gets them stirred up, but I tend to have more luck if I see at least 2 or more fish down there. But so I just watched my graph, and it seemed like all day that 20, 25 foot depth range is where we seen fish everywhere we went. It didn't matter if we were on a bluff, a channel bank, a point. That just seemed to be the hot spot for the zone. So I'd watch my graph, I'd see fish, and I'd drop down and I'd just count it down right in front of them. And if you know how to read your graph, and if you've got it set up that way, you can read the fish and you can see how they react to it. A lot of times you'll see a fish swim up to it as your bait is falling down through the water column. A lot of times you'll see that fish swim up and he'll either bite it or he'll look at it, decide he doesn't want it, he'll swim away. A lot of times you'll see you drop down, they'll kind of just hang out there by it, and then they'll bite it. I actually had a couple bites today where we were sitting in 40 foot of water. I seen some fish in the 20-foot depth range, so I dropped my bait down. But as I was dropping my bait down, I noticed a couple fish come up off the bottom out of 40 foot and swam up to that 20-foot mark and bit my drop shot. So for being a finesse bait, these drop shots will call fish from a lot further away than you think. Again, the water's clear, so that helps, but these fish were swimming up 20 feet to look at this bait and even bite it in some cases. So a topwater is something that you're going to want to keep on the deck of your boat handy at all times on Table Rock Lake from late spring clear through fall. Even right now in the middle of July and it's hot and you really don't think about a topwater bite unless it's super early in the morning or maybe right before dark in the evening. But what you'll find a lot of times, especially on Table Rock, there's so many bait fish that anytime during the day you can be out there and just have a fish or even a school of fish push some shad to the surface and you know, kind of go into a feeding frenzy. And if you keep a topwater on your deck, you can pick it up, make a quick cast, and you're going to find out real quick how aggressive they are. And today for us, it was the Whopper Plopper, the River to Sea Whopper Plopper in the size 130. And this is just a bone color. But there was a few times today, even late in the morning. I mean, it was, well, actually it was about midday. Sun was high, it was pretty bright, there was no real wind to speak of. And a few fish would come up and bust some shad. One of us would reach down, grab that Whopper Plopper, cast it out there, and a few times, you know, we caught some fish doing it. So don't think that because it's the middle of the summer or that it's hot, that you still can't catch them on top, even in the middle of the day. So we always like to keep a topwater handy when we're out, even in the middle of the summer. If you decide to come down to Table Rock in the summertime and fish, hopefully this will help you out. Remember, this time of year on Table Rock, that 20 to 30 foot depth range is the sweet spot in most places. And that can be all types of different structure, be all types of different banks. Just you want to make sure that you're scoping out that 20 to 30 foot depth range. That's not to say you can't catch some fish shallower, and you can definitely catch fish deeper. But a majority of fish this time of year on Table Rock tend to congregate in that 20 to 30 foot zone. So if you come down, I'd recommend shaky head, a drop shot, always have a topwater tied on, and you could throw a bunch of other stuff too. Jig, there's a lot of stuff, a deep diving crankbait. But those are the three baits that we caught them on today, and you can't go wrong in the summertime on Table Rock with those three baits.